Yeah, look, these episodes we've been taking a bit of a walk down memory lane, and Adri and I shared our personal stories in the last couple of podcasts.
Yes, it was a very, very interesting learning. I think we learned a lot about each other, although we know each other for 14 years, but obviously we didn't spend our childhood together. So we became besties in our, in our adults' life. So it was very interesting to learn a lot about your childhood and also sharing my stories with you.
Yeah, look, we learned a lot that we didn't know about each other. Some of it was a little bit teary in some places. It took a couple of goes to get the recordings done. It was all fun and games. Like even this morning, we've had to stop and start because of technical issues with Jodie driving.
It's all good. Luckily, we realized right in the beginning, so now we are back on and recording. So yeah,
It is recording
we
this
didn't
time.
miss anything extremely important.
All right, why don't we jump straight into it? So today we're going to be just going over our business journey to give you some insights into that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we really should start with you because you owned the salon first. So I think it's just for the timeline is better. So let's start with really the very basic question. Like, why did you decide to open your own salon?
Well, this is the salon that I swore I'd never own. In the podcast, I was telling you the story about people asking me if I'd be a hairdresser and own my own salon like my mum used to. The answer was no, never. So I was working in asset management with Graham. Graham and I were together, and I was working in asset management as a distributions manager. And I was miserable. I was taking long lunches. I would go to the gym and get to work a little bit late, leave a little bit early. I'm a terrible employee. Like unless you keep me really busy and it's really good money. If I'm busy, then I'm fine. If I'm starting to get bored, then off I go. So I'd been jumping around like every 6 months, changing jobs. And Graham said, look, stop. And this is just when the GFC. So in the banking world, we learn about I was actually in one of the meetings when it was first spoken about that the company that was the catalyst that couldn't get refinanced, that's what triggered the GFC and the downfall of anything and of everything. And I was in a meeting where we had all the fund managers and in there and talking about how we were going to get through it, what strategies we were using, how we would speak to our investors about the loss, because we knew that because this has happened, everyone started selling shares and panicking. This big panic happened. And so, and I said to Graham, oh, I don't know if I want to stay here for that long. And Graham said, well, you know what? Why don't we look at buying a salon? I'm like, no, I don't want to own a salon. He goes, well, you definitely don't want to work for someone. Doesn't matter how much they pay you.
So how did he come up with the idea? Like, why did he think about the salon? Like you were in a completely different field, and salon is very different from what you were doing. Like, how did he come up with the idea?
How does he come up with any of his harebrained ideas? It's just like it just popped into his little round head. Yeah, no, it was out of the blue for me too, because I'd never considered it. I'd always managed salons, but I had no desire to own one. And we didn't have savings because I was, we were spending the money going on holidays, trips everywhere. We were both in really good jobs, but we hadn't really saved because we'd only been dating and first moved in together and we're living in Manly. So it was expensive,
Yeah.
We had credit cards, but
Fantastic.
yeah, that was it. So, what was I going to say? So he just sat down and he said, I'll start looking. So he started looking online and I'm like, where do you even start to buy a salon? So we had a look at some brokers and Gumtree, where we found you. And we went and started looking at lots of different salons, but they were all around the eastern suburbs of Sydney mostly, because we didn't want to go out west or be in the CBD. And all the salons were really expensive. Like, there was a couple for around 30,000, but the ones that looked, in the ballpark of what we wanted and was in the right demographic, because we went through and we researched all the different demographics too, to see about, like who our clientele would be, and, can they afford us,
Yeah. So then you ended up in a suburb called Maroubra, which was a little bit different from Manly. Manly is all posh, and that time Maroubra still was sort of in a transformation, like it was.
It was on the cusp. Well, it actually wasn't Maroubra. So this is what I tell everyone. It's actually not Maroubra. It's Lurline Bay, which is South Coogee.
Yes.
And actually Lurline Bay now is where, like, it's a very affluent area. So, there's some big names that live next door. But so when we first got it, though, it was in that transition period, and we paid, $80,000, but we didn't have $80,000.
So how did you manage to do it? Because that's going to be very interesting for many people who are thinking purchasing the salon, but they don't have the startup money for. So what was your creativity around getting that money?
I always have a way. If I really want something, I'm going to find a way to get it, especially if Graham's by my side. Between the two of us, we've got a fair bit of strategy going on there. But so we started looking at options, and we looked at finance through banks. We looked at finances through brokers. Literally, all we had was a credit card, a $15,000 credit card that had $5,000 left on it. That's all we had. And so we found this salon, and she was open to vendor finance. And that was the first time we'd ever heard of vendor finance. And we're like, oh, what's that? And so we ended up coming to an agreement of she wanted a lot more than what we paid, but we ended up settling on the 80 with the vendor finance. And so we came to the agreement of the amount, and then I went to my family. And I had a half sister at the time that we were really close with, and they had their own business, and they had some money, and so they lent us $10,000 for us to use as a deposit. So we drew up a contract with them about repayment and interest for borrowing that $10,000, and then we had the vendor finance agreement with Gloria. So we struggled to pull it together, and the day we opened the salon, and I had inherited I think 13 staff member at that time, plus 2 rented chairs. So it was tough, and we actually had to sit down and work out what we call a feasibility study. So that's where we look at the numbers that the business is doing. How much can it make each week? How much is the break-even budget? We didn't call it a break-even budget back then. It was just like, what's the salon budget? Okay, I don't need to take a wage out of it. We've got to make sure that we can pay the staff, pay the loans, and everything, like the insurances that go with it. Everything that goes with it, we had to put down on a piece of paper and look at, okay, how are we going to make that much money? And I had spent before I even bought the salon, I went in as an undercover client first. I didn't tell the
Wow.
salon owner that I was going in. I
Mm-hmm.
went in to watch all the staff
Yeah.
and to see how they performed and feel the vibe and the energy in the salon
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of clients, you know. And then I made sure that the salon owner gave me like all her financials for I wanted the last, I think it was 6 or 12 weeks I wanted to look at mostly. I didn't really care about the years before because the
Yeah.
years before mean nothing.
Yeah.
So I had a look at those, you know, 6 to 12 weeks and checking that, okay, the money that was coming in matched the budget that we had calculated for ourselves that it would be, and plus a bit extra to give ourselves, you know, a bit of leeway to make sure that we weren't underestimating. And then I went into, she hadn't told the staff that she was selling. So I said, well, as part of the agreement, before we settled, I said, okay, well, I want to work for you for like 3 weeks and I want to do the till with you at the end of each day so I can see how much I'm sorry, but I don't trust anyone about you telling me what the numbers are. I want to see them for myself. And I want to do it over 3 weeks so that I could see, because there's usually up and down weeks. I wanted to see some sort of consistency. And I wanted to see how the team all worked together, whether they all got along really well, and whether I could get along with them as well. So Gloria brought me in, and I think she said I was going to be the new salon manager because I didn't want them, like, because I was going to be asking questions and looking at things and watching people, I didn't want them to like start resenting me if I came in as, you know, just another employee that, you know, it would have been off. So yeah, and we did that before we settled on the actual sale. But yeah, we went through a big process to make sure that we were getting what we were paying for, because it was a lot of money. Like $80,000 now is a lot.
Yeah.
80,000 back in, you know, 20 years ago was, it's not, when was it?
Oh, that was
2008. Yeah, it was 2008. So almost 20 years ago. That was a lot of money. So everyone was telling, my auntie and everyone was saying, don't do this. It's ridiculous. Why are you leaving such good paying jobs? But I was miserable in the paying jobs and I wasn't staying there longer than 6 months. So that wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about your story is that, you know, the practicality you went through to make sure, you know, like, is this something which is right for you and good for you? Because many times people, they don't know how to buy into a business, and if you don't know how to do it, it actually can be extremely dangerous. And I think the best way, the way you decided to be a part of it for 3 weeks before you made the final decision, I think it's very, very important. And I think it was really smart. So you got the business, you took over the business eventually. So when did you drop your miserability?
Say it again.
Miserability.
When did I stop being miserable?
Yes.
Adri's hungry. She's coming through. I love it when she does that. I always keep it going.
Did things started to change? Like, did you started to feel better? Was it the right decision?
I started feeling better the moment that we decided to do it, because it's because I like a new shiny thing. That's why I was changing jobs so often, is because if there's something new, then I'll jump into it feet first and run with it if I've decided that, all right, I'm going to do something. So yeah, it was, I had never became upset owning the salon and wanting to get rid of it in that way that I did with other jobs is, one, I'm good at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I'm working for myself, so I'm motivated because the money is there. Three, I didn't have anyone else telling me what to do. And four, I was always busy. So I didn't have time to be bored.
So you took over the salon, like you had a quite bit of an idea, like if you're going to have a little bit of a money left, you were okay in the beginning not to have a wage for yourself. But obviously, like we are not starting or running a business.
Can I just tell you something about when we started? So I had the $5,000 in a credit card. That's what I used to do refurb on, because I really disliked the way it looked. So we went to junk sales and secondhand places and looked online for new chairs and mirrors. Like, we did everything that we wanted to do on a really tight budget. I wish I had, when I'll talk about why I wish I hadn't have done that now, when we a bit later. But I only had, for the first day that I opened the salon, I had it on, the first day was a Monday. We didn't have a float. I didn't have enough money to put in a float. So I had to go to Graham's change tin that he used to have, and I raided that. We only had like $1 and $2 coins and silver. The rest of it, I was just hoping, gosh, I hope someone brings in a note or doesn't ask me for change yet, because I don't have it. So I thought, oh, well, I think someone did come in with $100, and I had to run next door to the chicken shop. The chicken shop were the best, because they used to have all the small change. So we'd go and change out all our big notes for their little notes. But yeah, we didn't even have a float on the day we opened.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So how long it took for you to start to make money for yourself out from this salon?
I started taking, I think it was only a few weeks, because I'd done all my due diligence. I knew how much it was going to make, but I didn't know, if staff would leave or clients would leave, because we had that really big, there's a nervous transition period, and it's always bumpy and it's always nerve-wracking, because when you purchase a business like a salon or something that a majority of it is what we call goodwill, right? It's the tangible things are just the fixtures and fittings. Everything else, fixtures, fittings, and stock. Everything else is goodwill. There's no guarantee. There's no value that you can put on. Like it's really hard to value goodwill, and it's very volatile. So the things I had to combat was the woman that I bought the salon from had owned it for 30 years. And then the woman before her had owned it for like 20 years. So it had been there a long time. Right. So I thought, okay, good. It's got that stability. But I had the risk of like the staff not liking me. The owner, we had an agreement that she would stay on for 3 months so that we could she could introduce me to her clients and all that kind of thing. And I think it may have been 6 weeks into it. She was really struggling with the whole mental load of getting rid of it, I thought. And then she comes in one day and things had been off for a little while. And then she got a phone call, and her daughter had consumed bleach. So left, she went flying out the salon. Of course she would, that's nothing wrong with that, 100% back there. But then I gave her a space, and she had a couple of weeks off, and the little girl ended up being okay, but it was a long recovery. And then I think it might have been sort of week 2 that she was off. She called me up and she said, "Oh, I'm not coming back. I'm leaving." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, all right, that I completely understand that. You know, you want to be home with your daughter and everything. And so she finished up, and then I noticed there was this huge drop. I'm like, what's going on? Like all of a sudden we were earning, you know, I think it was about $8,000 a week. And then it dropped down to $5,000 a week just in that period that she hadn't been there. Like not the first couple of weeks, it was from when she'd given me that phone call. And it was a very tight community of, and that she was well inside of a Greek community. And I noticed her big paying clients that used to come to her were gone. And I'm like, what? Anyway, I hear through the grapevine from some clients that, you know, would come to the salon out of convenience but didn't particularly like her, who ended up loving me. Oh, she's opened a salon in a garage at home. And I'm like, no, she can't. We have a non-compete clause. And I had said to them, like, in the original agreement, it said 5Ks. I said, no, I want 10Ks. And I told our solicitors to make it a 10K radius. I drove past. I could see, yep, she's got a salon set up there in her garage. I've gone back. I've called our lawyers. I've gone through the contract. They didn't update it to the 10Ks. They left it at 5. So I'm like, all right, well, she's within 5Ks.
Yeah.
She was 100 meters outside of the 5K.
Wow.
Like, and she'd opened, and that's what she'd been doing. That's why she was funny with me as well. But she'd been planning to, because she had young children at the time. She had 3 daughters. She'd been planning to this the whole time because her husband wanted her to get rid of the salon, but she still wanted to, you know, keep making money as well. So she had sold me a salon. And I thought this wouldn't happen because I was doing vendor finance. She was taking a bigger risk than I was, that I just wouldn't pay her anymore. I was so dirty. I was furious, like prepared to turn back into the old Jodie, you know, like I would have made some phone calls back in the day. But there was nothing I could do about it because she was literally, it was like between 50 and 100 meters that she was outside of that 5K.
Yeah.
And, you know, in good faith. So I had to swallow that pill and just get over it. And I kept paying, obviously I had to keep paying my,
and the risk is always there. So, you know, like, we never can really fully predict how the other party is going to behave. And unfortunately, many times we can hear, you know, exactly what you had to go through. And really, we cannot change the situation. We cannot change the other party. So the only thing is we can make a decision how we're going to move forward. So what was your action plan after, when you know, probably you were extremely angry, probably you called her, you told her what you really were thinking?
No, I didn't call.
No?
I was filthy, but I didn't call her. But I did call her out. Like she came in to bring me flowers or something for some reason. Like she used to do those things and just say hello. And I'm like, so how's the salon at home going, Gloria? And she just kind of stopped and looked at me and went, I hope, you know, good luck. It would have been nice to know. But so all I could do was, the only strategy that I knew how to do was to work harder and in as much as hire ticket clients to make up for the ones. We had to find some clients as well to replace them. So back then, the only option was like newspaper ads, Gumtree, or a letterbox drop. So we had a promotion put together, and Graham and I walked the streets, and then I hired some letterbox droppers to go and do the letterbox drops, and then we had to go around and make sure that they hadn't just binned our flyers.
Yeah.
So because I didn't trust them either. So it was, and we did. We ended up being able to replace those clients with more in line with my style of the salon, and we've done those renovations, so it had a new look and a new feel, and I was training the girls in how to upsell clients and not just come in and say, oh, you're having the same as last week, or same color as last time. So I taught them, I gave them the skills to be able to upsell and provide a better service for their clients. And so we just had to be smart about being able to I was never brave enough to play with my pricing in as far as I used to put it up, I think a little bit later on, but at the beginning I was too scared to move my prices, especially for the original clients that had been there for donkey's years. And because she'd taken the high paying ones and left, just the everyone else. So I had to be really careful of going too far. So the new clients would have one price list and the old clients would have another.
Yeah, and that happens many times even when we start to work with salon owners, when the price is so far off, then we do that, like we do the transition time. But what I really wanted to ask is about your staff, because you started with like 13 or 15 staff. So once you took over, it's actually quite natural that, sometimes, as you mentioned, like they won't stay, or not many is going to stay with the business. So how did it go for you?
We had a big transition period as well. But also back then we had the skills shortage in the industry. So we had a lot of, she had a lot of backpackers. So that's how I used to find my staff as well, the Irish backpackers and English. So I kept a couple. I ended up losing probably 3 of the senior stylists that had been with her for so long. They just didn't, we just had different work ethics, and my management style was, I'd like you to do it my way, please. So there was a few that ended up getting let go, and there was a few that just didn't like me and left. So it was, at first it was really scary, but after the first 1 or 2, and then I remembered what my old boss used to tell me when I was an apprentice, that everyone's replaceable. No one is irreplaceable. You may be really valuable and we'll try and keep you, but you can be replaced. And I saw this when I was in the end of my apprenticeship, and one of their managers had been with them for 10 years. She'd done her apprenticeship with them and stayed on and became a manager. And so we're like, they will never get rid of her, like that she can do no wrong. And then one day she was just gone. They had a disagreement. We never knew what it was about, but they had let her go. And then they came into the meeting and said, and that was when they said, just so you know, no one's irreplaceable. She used to make them the most money. She used to manage all of us and train us, and they still let her go. And that was the thing, that we can replace you. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think your example, it's not unique, unfortunately, in a way. When someone is taking over a business, and the person who owned the business for such a long time with long-term employees, the resistance is going to be there. So people very, very few people are going to be open-minded or welcoming a new person, a completely new personality. And it's many times happens that sometimes people are losing the complete staff in 6 months. So this is something, again, when you are not starting a business from scratch, when you are actually taking over a business, you need to be aware of that. More than likely it's going to happen. Might one or two or three going to stay with you because you click, or maybe they welcome the change. But many times, even if they don't follow the previous owner, they just don't want to deal with a new person or a new personality. And it's very strange, because if they leave the business and then they go somewhere else to find a job, then they have to get familiar with the unfamiliar again. And then they have to deal with a new personality, a new business, learning everything from scratch. So it is just a resistance from people which can happen. And unfortunately it does happen quite a lot of times when someone takes over a business. 6 months in or a year in, the staff is changing, is not going to be the same staff, and your clients going to transition also. Some of them, they're going to stay with you because they're loyal to the business, not to the people. But it's going to be a whole transition going to happen in 12 months time.
What about, so it was really challenging, but once you get used to that feeling of having them left, and it's, you get that sick feeling like, oh, I did everything right, but then sometimes you also go, oh, what a relief.
Yeah, and honestly, it just depends how far you are in a business. Then after a while you will realize it's a cycle, it's a life cycle in business. And sometimes even the people you thought they never going to leave, they just want to change their life and they leave, and it hurts in the beginning, and later on you can just understand this is part of the business. It can be very, very sad when someone you love, they don't want to be part of your business anymore, or they want something else for themselves. Obviously, everyone has their free will, but it does happen. And in the beginning, it hurts much more than 3 years, 5 years, 10 years into business, because then your understanding is very, very different. And also you learn about emotions and business. Business shouldn't be an emotional journey. Business is business. So this is when you learn to separate things and see things from 70 feet up. So I think it's a very, very important thing. So let me ask you, I think it's going to be a very interesting question for people. So what was the best decision you made as a salon owner?
Gosh, there's a big long pause, because there was, I guess the best decision was buying the salon. For me, it was such a up and down, and so many big life events that there wasn't something standout. I think probably one of the best decisions I made was when I decided, okay, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to sell it to Adriana. My best decision was when I was like, okay, I'm going to let it go.
All right. I think we will talk about it a little bit later.
Yeah.
So the next question is, can you describe some of the biggest challenges you faced as a salon owner? We already talked a couple of things, but is there anything else you can remember during your salon owner years, when you had really big challenges and you didn't know what to do about it, but then you overcome those challenges?
Look, the worst thing that happened was, and one of the biggest things that I wish I had have done, was find help when I needed it. And I didn't prepare for when I was going off to have the kids. I just thought, oh, well, the girls know how to work there without me. I've left them alone. They know what to do. I've got the policies and procedures there. Bit of common sense. I'm upstairs. I can make a phone call. That was probably one of the big mistakes I made, because what it ended up happening is the unforeseen. So I told you about having the salon when I had Harper.
Yeah.
2 days after I had Harper, the girl that I had to basically manage for me snapped her Achilles tendon. So she was off work. So it means I was not on the floor. She wasn't on the floor. So, I had to then come back to work with her. It must have been like 5. Harper would have been maybe 2 weeks old. 2 days is a bit dramatic. I think it was like 2 weeks. But because Graham he'd had a week off, so it must have been the second week that this happened. And so she couldn't come back to work for 6 or 8 weeks. So I had to work out how I was going to juggle a newborn baby and being back on the floor with no help. So I had to enlist, Joe the florist or clients. So that was one of the biggest mistakes, was not getting my ducks in a row and realizing that I'm going to have to get someone to help to do this properly, because the repercussions of me not doing it properly and not having someone come in that knows what they're doing and to manage it properly, because I didn't want to pay the money. I didn't want to, I was going to be off the floor. I don't want to lose even more money by paying someone else to do the job. So I'll just, we'll just get by. I should have paid the money to train someone to do it properly and give them a good wage, so that they wouldn't want to leave to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of answering to my next and last question. What I wanted to ask is, what was the biggest mistake you made as a salon owner? And it sounds like it, like that was something what you realized, that not asking for the right help in the right time and holding on to money instead of investing money, and understanding that would be a way to grow your salon.
I think that's something big in this industry, especially the hair beauty industry, maybe a bit in the wellness, I don't know so much, but people don't want to pay money to into things that they don't see the value in at the time. Like, no, that's not what I mean. They just don't want to pay the money. They want a free solution, or they think that, we can just get by because the staff know what to do. It's the same as we see that people don't want to invest. And this is one of the things that I was mentioning earlier, is that instead of investing in training a new manager, or investing in maybe furthering my business skills, I chose to invest in making the salon look pretty and giving it a new sign and getting a computer in, so that all that money that I could have used as my safety net, I just spent it on all these things to make it look pretty. And that's probably another big thing, is I wish I hadn't have done that. I would have been better off. The salon was making money ugly, I didn't need to spend my safety net just to make it look pretty, because I wanted it to look pretty, or I wanted to, I didn't change the name. I was smart enough not to change the name in the beginning, because it was a standing name, as ugly as the name was. A nice name doesn't bring in clients, you might think it does because it makes you feel good and it reflects you and everything, but it's not about you. The clients are coming with the ugly name. So it was spending money in the wrong place, which this is, I think, the big difference between you and I, is that you don't do that. So enough about me. Let's go. So this my end of the story is actually Adriana's beginning of the story, because once I decided I wanted out, how did you end up with the salon that no one ever wanted?
Well, the way I ended up with the salon is really you had this idea in your head that you wanted to sell your salon, and I would be the best person to take over the salon from you. I ended up renting a chair in your salon. This is how we met, and we were talking about that in the last episodes. But yeah, I was renting a chair very happily, you know. I was making money, and I was basically very oblivious about certain things, which were, you know, like if I wanted to go for a holiday, you know, like I didn't make any money, I had to use my savings. And then if I was sick, I had to think twice, because who is going to look after my clients? But at that stage, I was really happy. I was making really good money. I was young. I basically never been sick or whatever. And for me, you asking me to take over the salon, I was just like, hell no. I don't want the responsibility of clients.
You were actually a business owner before you bought the salon, though. Like, you actually got your first salon before you came to me, because that little story, I don't know that we've covered that too much in how you got, because you were a rent-a-chair. So to become a rent-a-chair, how did you first get your clients? Because most people really struggle with that.
Yeah, for me, it was a very unfortunate and very strange situation because the salon where I was working, they shut down, and they gave us 2 weeks notice, and we didn't even know, you know, like they're going to shut down. And I never thought of renting a chair here in Australia. And the sad part was it that they were sponsoring me, and they didn't care about my sponsorship, so they just shut the salon, and I was on the street. So this is when I went to look around to rent a chair, and that was a long time ago. I don't know how many years ago. I think it was around 2010 or 2009, something like that.
You came to us, you came to my salon when you became the rent-a-chair, didn't you? So that was
Yes.
so that was in 2010. So you
Yeah.
kind of become a sole trader
Yes.
without even wanting to become a sole trader.
Yes, absolutely. So, and the funny thing was, you know, like I was walking around suburb to suburb to try to find a salon who would rent a chair, and no one wanted to rent a chair for me. So that was really difficult. And then I ended up putting up on advertisement to Gumtree. And I thought to the universe, you know, like if I meant to rent a chair, please drive me to the right person, to the right salon. And then, you know, a couple of minutes later, I've got an answer, which I thought it was you, but it was Graham, who was inviting me to come to the salon. And this is how my journey with you started. You know, like I went to the salon, we clicked right away, and then basically we decided then and there to rent a chair. Back to the clients. So obviously, you know, like I did not have my own clients, but because the salon did shut down, you know, clients find us, you know, like it was not stealing clients from the salon owner or whatever. We actually just had all our clients without hairdressers, and the hairdressers without clients. And basically I brought over just under 200 clients with me. So I started from a really good position, quite busy with clients.
Can I ask you a question? Did you think of yourself as a business owner at this stage, or did you think of yourself as a hairdresser who has your own clients?
Yeah, a hairdresser who has her own clients. Yeah, I didn't think of as a business owner whatsoever. I was just someone, you know, like who is a hairdresser, and I'm just looking after my clients. I'm just making my money. But yeah, I never thought about it as a business. Yeah.
Yeah. And with and I think this is where a lot of salon owners come from as well, is that they have built up maybe a little bit of their own clientele and they go out to start for themselves. So did you did you have systems that you would make up for your ordering and stuff, or did it just kind of all fall? How did you transition from, from scratch? Because that's something that I don't think we've really spoken about, is how someone can transition from just, hairdressing to all of a sudden having to be able to have stock and take appointments and,
Yeah, so for me, it was a situation when I had to make it to work for myself. I'm quite organized and systemized, so I knew that basically to be able to make the most out of everything what I had, I needed to keep a stock. I needed to make sure, like I always had retail to recommend to my clients. I always could do treatments. So for me, I did put myself behind and the clients up front. And although I didn't think about it right then and right then as a business, but what I was keeping in front of my head is to pleasing my clients and keeping them, because I could not afford to lose them. Also because I used to work in many salons before, and I was helping the salon owners, like with ordering stock and, booking appointments, calling for feedback and all those things. I just copied the same. I basically just copied the same thing, but I did not have that straight knowledge, what obviously later on I gained. I was just doing what I was thinking it was the best.
Yeah, okay, cool. We hadn't really spoken about that before, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that start off that way. So you're lucky that you're as organized as you are. That's why we work so well together, because I'm not and Adriana is. Even this morning, Adriana's like, right, we've got our to-do list. I'm like, what's on your list? And she holds up this big list in red marker of all the things we have to do today. All right, so what convinced you to finally, so when I was pushing you to take the salon, because we've already spoken about the backwards and forwards and all the rest of it, so what cemented the decision for you to go, yeah, all right, I'll do it?
Well, with all honesty, probably that was my best option out of all the options. Like if I didn't make a decision to take the salon over, then all the other options were really bad. So being smart, like I thought, well, these are the options. And I basically just did run through on paper and, in my mind, how am I going to end up if I choose this or that. And honestly, the best decision was to taking over the salon, because I didn't want to go anywhere else to rent a chair. And basically, at the end of the day, you gave me the ultimatum, like you're either going to take over or I'm going to shut down the salon. And first I told you, just shut it down.
And you did. Well, that's fine, because no one backs baby into a corner.
And then I had a good sleep. And by that time, I moved upstairs. So I lived upstairs in the unit above the salon. And I was thinking about, so if you shut it down, then, like I need to find a new place to rent a chair, need to take my clients to a new environment. And then I more than likely need to move. And I had my puppy, and it was just so easy. Everything was so easy. And basically, I just thought, well, out of all the options what I have, probably it's better if I take over, I stay on, I live upstairs. I knew everything and everyone in the salon, because I used to help you to manage the salon. So I knew the staff. Pretty much I knew what I would get into it. It was just basically, I did not want to have the responsibility of running a business for myself, which I didn't have problem to help you to manage, because I didn't I didn't have that emotional attachment with, with money. So the money part was what was worrying me, like, can I pay everything? And also I told you, I don't have the money to purchase the business. So you wanted me to purchase the business. Then I told to her, I told to you, like, how are we going to do that? Because I don't have any money to start or to pay the business in one go.
And that's where Jodie's little thing is, that's okay. I have a solution for that too. We'll do vendor finance. Yes. I trust you. And so this is what, and it's funny because I think when Adri sold it, it ended up being a very similar situation, but not just in how they afforded it and stuff. I'll let Adri tell that part of the story. But I think an important conversation that you and I had around this, and it comes back to when you were saying, like, you couldn't afford to go, like, if you went on holidays, you'd have to, save up you'd have to go without money and stuff. And so you couldn't take holidays whenever you wanted and things. So you and I had a conversation around, okay, so what are you going to use for retirement? Like, what are you going to do? Because you were in your 40s at that stage too.
Yeah.
I think. And like, okay, so 25 years until retirement, what's your plan? And Adriana goes, well, I don't really have one. And I said, well, everyone's got to have a plan, because you need to, back then it was like, you need to have at least $1 million in the bank to be able to retire if you want to get, $35,000 a year for your retirement. And so that was the thing that really got Adriana over the line, because you were so happy doing what you were doing. You were really happy, just you had the freedom and no stress of everything.
Yeah. And that was a very, very, very good question, because honestly, in my mind, I was still in my 20s, although my biological age was 40 or over 40, but my mind, and because we went through so many things, changing countries and everything, like, the timeline somehow is shifted for me, because I had to restart my life again. So in my mind, I still weren't there when I could have the freedom to think about, retirement and, like, what am I going to do regarding the retirement. But that was something what really made me to think also. So that was a really smart move from you.
I know how to get what I want. All right. So once you've got the salon, I know this already, and I'm just so jealous. What was the best decision you made?
Yeah. So a couple of months in, I think it was around 4 or 5 months in, I said, well, I need help, because I'm over 40s. I don't have the time to figure this out. And I reached out to my first business coach, and that was the best decision I ever made, because we turned around everything in 18 months. And, from the position where I was so confused and not really knowing how to grow the business, I just came out on the other side when I was so confident. Yes, my team has changed, like, when I started to implement changes, most of the team members, they left, and then I attracted new ones. And then when we decided to change pricing and the prices, I lost a big chunk of the clients, because I went probably I did a very risky move, because I wiped off the old price, and I started with a fresh and new price, because the situation what I find myself in, we had such a mixture of clients. I had my rent-a-chair clients who I inherited from a salon, where they were high-ticket clients. And then the salon had the old clients who didn't pay the right price, and then Jodie had a better price for the newer clients, but it was all over the place. And I remember when we started to work on my pricing with my business mentor, and I printed out the prices. It was like 460 something different prices, and she looked at it and she said to me like, "What the hell is this, Adri?" And I said, "I don't know." It is probably, like 40 years worth of pricing in one system, and I don't know who we charge, what we charge. And this is when we sort of started to started to think about what would be the best. And it was a couple of options, but I just thought, well, I just want to start fresh. And I know big chunk of our clientele are already paying the higher price. So we did some calculations and we said, well, if we lose 30%, we're still okay. And this is what we did. So I made a decision and I wanted to wait. So that was in May. And I wanted to wait to change the prices in the beginning of the next financial year, which is July. And this is when my business mentor asked a really relevant and a really good questions, like, why 1st of July? Why not now? What is the difference going to be? And I couldn't come up with the answer. So next day I went to the salon, I changed the pricing, I changed the menu, and we started to sketch from the new price. And did I lose clients? Over time, probably I lost half of the clients, but then new clients came in, and then I rebranded the salon. So had a new name, and I advertised ourselves as a color specialist salon.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good story. And I'm so glad that you did that. It was something that I was never brave enough to do. And the fact that you had a mentor, you knew to go and find someone. I was, too arrogant and one of those salon owners that like, I know what I'm doing. I've been hairdressing for 30 years. I know what I'm doing in a hairdressing salon. So yeah, that just shows the difference between the two mindsets, I think, which is really cool. All right. So biggest challenges. What were your top 3 challenges that you can remember?
Oh, I was already thinking like to come up with one. Not 3.
All right, give us one. Yeah.
So biggest challenge is probably it was to find the right team members. I think that was really, really difficult. And to learn to become the best leader for them, because I was missing that part. I was just like anyone else, like I wanted to give them the freedom. I wanted to become their friend. But I learned later on, like, yes, you can be friendly and you want to be friendly and you want to be, motivating and understanding, but there is a fine line. So your responsibility was to create a working environment, help them to grow, and they can come to you when they need help or advice, but you should not be the best friend for them. So I had to learn that. So that was a quite big challenge for me to grow as a manager, and confrontation. Like when I didn't like something, like how can I address that in a way that it's not going to end up someone slamming the door and never coming back to my business. So, but still addressing the problem and finding a solution together. So it's all. It didn't happen overnight. It was a lots of learning and people understanding personalities and everything else. So that was quite a big challenge. Also, one of the biggest challenge was to come up with the money to be able to afford my first business mentor, because I just took over the business from you, and obviously I was paying out my vendor loan, but then like I had to pay my team, I had to have money for stock, I have to pay, like all the bills and everything else. And suddenly my wages started to go down for myself. And I ended up in a position when I was paying more for my team members, and I was working far more hours than I used to work. So it was very, very challenging. But I knew that it would take for me a lot of stress and time to figure this out on my own. And when I reached out to my business mentor, I didn't even know if I can afford them. Like I just wanted to know how much a person would charge to help me to get out from this situation. And it was expensive, like for for the money what I had available right then, and right then to be able to invest. But the promise what I've got is that if I do everything what they ask, in 3 months time, like I will see the growth. And that was true. So yes, I had some money left on my credit card. And also I just reduced my wage even further. And even it was a jewelry what I sold, so I could get a little bit of a money. But it wasn't easy. It is definitely wasn't easy. But if you would ask me if I would do it again, yes, because I believe the reason I'm here today, it is because I made that decision, and it was a tough decision. But without that, I would probably still, floating around and trying to figure things out. It's so much more easier when you go to someone else who already knows everything what you want to know, and they just give you the information. So I was a really good student, because like when my business mentor told me, like you need to jump now, I asked, like how high, and I did everything. So I was
That's the difference.
yeah.
Take your sock off your microphone because your microphone's gone funny. Just doing a little bit of a sound check here. That's better. Yeah, look, the thing is that people don't realize that you do have to spend money to make money. And sometimes you have to sacrifice. You and I even sacrifice now, like
Absolutely.
when we whenever we decide to do something new, we have to invest the money back in to be able to do it, or have the person come and do it, teach us how to do it so that we're able to do what we need to do. And it takes time, and you have to put in the effort. Like
Yeah.
it's very rare that magic dust sprinkles on someone's head and they all of a sudden poof into a millionaire.
Yeah.
But you have to spend the money, and you have to, unfortunately, the reality for most people is that you have to sacrifice to get what you want. All right, so moving on from that, soon as we know that's the best decision you made was making smart investments, which is where in the beginning, whereas I made unneeded investments in making something pretty instead of investing in someone to give me some know-how. What was the biggest mistake you made, and what did you learn?
Employing a girl because out of because I really needed someone and I couldn't find anyone. And I knew from the beginning that this girl is not going to be right for me, but I was so miserable and I needed so much this person. So that was a huge mistake. In the beginning, it was working, and there were a couple of signs which I just brushed off my shoulder. Like when I asked her, like, so in the beginning, like, how do you like the salon? Like, is there anything I can do for you? And she said, no, you are fine. You are listening. Because she gave me a couple of suggestions, and I considered it, and it was a good idea. So I was implementing things. But then later, she was specifically a person who should not work for anyone, because she wanted everything in my salon her way. And when I started to resist it because it didn't make sense, it didn't work out, this is when we started to run into really big problems. And also not knowing the employment rules and regulations deep enough, so she knew it better. And not employing a HR person for contracts, so she could take me on a ride, yeah. And unfortunately, we ended up parting not in a good way. I was ready to let her go that morning, and she came and she gave me her resignation. And then the whole lot started to go really bad because she was demanding money and all those things. We ended up in Fair Work, and we went through mediation, and basically we just we ended up like what she wanted, she didn't get it. Even the mediator was telling to us, look, I know what's going on in here. So basically I ended up offering for her 1 week worth of wage just to make her happy. She wanted much more money, and we did parted. But this is when I decided, all right, from now on I employ a HR person, because I don't know, it was so stressful. And I had lots of sleepless nights, and I just kept getting emails after emails from this person demanding more and more and more. And although I knew that I didn't make a mistake, but going through this process, it was really terrible, because I know that I'm that kind of person that I would like, I'm honest, and I would not take money away from other people. But I just couldn't believe it can happen. So that was a really big learning, and also listening to myself, not to employ someone just because I really needed someone. And I already knew she's not going to be the best person for me. So that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, wow. It's staff are tough, and there's, especially when you come across ones like that, it doesn't matter how, I think it doesn't matter how good you are as an employer, you're going to come across those ones that are going to put you through the ringer and make you think, why did I do this?
It shook me. It was terrible. It was really terrible, because I'm just like, how can someone be like this? I couldn't understand. But then like, it created in my salon. Like, then I always had a HR person who drew all my contracts. She explained the contracts, policies, everything before I employed or when I employed team members. So that was it. Yeah.
Well, you'd learn something out of you got something good out of something bad.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
it's only ever a mistake if you don't learn something from it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, like, based on that experience, I really can see when someone's team member, or even, like, when we employ someone and it just doesn't go to the right way, you just really need to make a decision sooner rather than later, that that person, no, that person is not right.
Adri's choking there for a second. All right. Well, that brings us to our time for today. So we will be back in a fortnight or a week, I'm not sure, of for our next podcast, and we might keep talking about some of the times that we've had some different employees or clients. We might, the ones that have given us the most trouble and what we've learnt from it. That's always a good one. But we have our upcoming boot camp coming up. If you'd like some information about that, Adri's going to be teaching all those foundations that she was talking about when she turned the salon around in the 18 months. all those kind of foundations about pricing, how to increase your prices, how to calculate your prices, how to have the right value for the clients that you want to attract and which clients you want to attract. So it's a 12-week boot camp that we're going to be running that. So you can jump onto our links. There's a live record. There's a recording of a live we did that can get you started. Adri, our handles for Instagram and
Facebook and TikTok, it's at Focus GDT, very simple. And if you need any further information, we're going to put the link down. So in the description box, you will find the link to our 12 weeks bootcamp and also to our Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok accounts.
And we, I was like, I needed to remember to tell you then. I've had a mental blank. It's all right, I'll remember in the next one. Okay, well, that's us for now. You can, if you want to know any more, you can send us a DM as well. That's right, because we have a Facebook group. We would love to, if you would like to join the group, because we go live in there each week on a Wednesday, is it, Adri?
Yeah,
we go
Wednesday.
Live, and Adri answers the two of us, but most questions will be for Adri. We'll answer any questions that you have, or if you're having any challenges, or you just want someone to brainstorm with, like pop in there, send us a DM and we'll give you a link. And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.